Niners, 42. Cowboys, 10.
More
Dominant outing.
More points that Dallas has conceded in this game than they had in the previous games combined.
Wow, you stretch every single anti-Cowboys narrative has been stoked. The fire's stoked under all of them. It's funny because, look, Dak Prescott didn't play well. He ends the game with 3 interceptions. That had nothing to do with the outcome of the game, the actual interceptions. The Niners were just dominant, and the story has to be that offense and Brock Purdy at the helm running it. Not only was he just the facilitator in this one, I thought Brock Purdy was just outstanding in this game.
Yeah, Purdy was fantastic. I mean, the 49ers across the board were fantastic in this game. I mean, it came out, they immediately executed on offense. You thought, okay, maybe it's going to be a game where offense actually has success, but Fred Warner with a perfect peanut punch to knock the ball out. We talked about that a little bit before on Tony Pollard. San Francisco recover, right? And then that started to set the tone of the game. The 49ers were having success. They weren't getting stopped by Dallas's defense. The defense showed up every now and again with a big play or a big hit or just something, this to show that is actually a pretty legit unit, albeit banged up. But every time the Dallas Cowboys offense got the ball, nothing happened. The 49ers found a way of just stuffing them, shutting them down, getting a turnover, whatever it was. And then everything just started to go San Francisco's way. And eventually, we reached a point where the Dallas defense felt like they reached that stage where the Broncos got to against the Dolphins, where they just wanted out. They just wanted out of that game. Their offense couldn't get it. It was ugly.
I mean, it wasn't like the Niners got up 14-0, but Dallas is a good team. So you knew that they'd be able to punch back at least a little bit, and they tried. They did.
They got that one bomb to Turpin, but that was basically their game.
It was a great pass, Dak to Turpin, 26 yards, beautiful, and Turpin ends up getting hurt later. But the Niners were just too tough, man. They were just too good on both sides. The defense was flying around. Every time Dak left the pocket, they were tracking him down, whether it was Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. They're just fast, man. And their pass rush, outstanding against Dallas. And then, Dallas just didn't look like they had enough dynamic answers, whereas everything the Niners do looks dynamic. Brandon Ayuk running through space. And then they had that stretch where Brock Purdy is just precision. I mean, the people were describing it as he just makes good decision after good decision after good decision. And in this game, he did. He absolutely did. I mean, everything, not only that, but just putting the ball where it needed to be. I thought his best throw was negated by a penalty through a deep out to Ayuk where he just put it right on him. But he was carving up the Cowboys' zone coverage, throwing exactly where it needed to be. Then on top, again, this is where everything's good, right? They dialed up the same play we mentioned for the Lions, the George Kittle, flea flicker. George Kittle gets behind the defense for a 38-yard touchdown. So you're calling good plays. Brock Purdy's executing. Andy's accurate. And, oh, by the way, Ayuk and Debo and McCaffrey and Kittle, good luck covering all those guys. And the defense is a house from start to finish. It's just Niners look really good.
Yeah, they were phenomenal. I mean, this was one of the best games Brock Purdy has ever had, really. Forget whatever the baseline statistics look like. This was one of his best performances in any single game, where, again, he was doing a lot. He was making a lot of really nice throws, in addition to the fact that everything Shanahan dials up is gold. I mean, the guy has the Midas touch right now, and even a team like Dallas. And this was, I think, an interesting reflection of how you attack this offense that's unstoppable right now. And they talked about it a bit. Chris was talking about it on the broadcast. Dan Quinn essentially said he would rather have a bad matchup in personnel terms than a bad schematic matchup and change what you're doing to try and attack this offense. I kind of feel like that's the wrong way of doing it. I think you have to go the opposite approach, and even if it's not what you do particularly well, try and do what beats this offense instead of just saying, no, we're going to match up our guy against your guy because their guy's better. It just is. It doesn't matter how good your defense is. Their guy is George Kittle and Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and Kyle Juszczyk and Christian McCaffrey, and you don't have that. You don't. Even if you have one or two guys, you don't have the depth. You can't go deep into your bench because eventually they're going to find the guy that does match up well with whoever you've got, and you lose. And we saw that in this game. Like the 49ers prodded around a bit and found where the matchups were beneficial. Like Christian McCaffrey didn't get much going early in this game. They were shutting that down. And then they just found where the weakness was and hammered that until you keeled over. And it worked.
Niners have a lot of answers, man. They have a lot of answers. Yeah, it was impressive. It was impressive from start to finish. I don't know what else to say. I think you're right. It may have been the very best Brock Purdy game, which I'm not here to tear him down. We're always trying to bring perspective here, right? Because the baseline for a lot of people is 9 touchdowns, no picks, perfect, 190,000 passer rating or whatever it is. But on prime time, we saw the best Brock Purdy. My prediction was that Christian McCaffrey would come out of this game with MVP hype, but it's going Purdy's way. I think it's been building up.
That just set the recovery back?
No, we still have voice is fine. It's just probably need to cough it out a little bit here.
Yeah.
So Purdy was awesome.
Yeah.
In this game.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I just try to find I don't want to take away from the Purdy story. He's the last pick in the draft, 7th rounder, and he looks like the perfect fit for Kyle Shanahan's offense. First touchdown, scramble drill, finds George Kittle. This is what I'm saying. There is a combination of Kyle Shanahan's got some touchdowns in there. The playmakers have some touchdowns in there. Brock Purdy's creating them. The Niners have multiple ways to win offensively.
Yeah.
Purdy's one of them.
No, it was. I mean, Dallas tried to hang in there early. With the play to Turpin was great. I forget who it was. Who was the Dallas safety that basically stopped the touchdown by not just tackling Christian McCaffrey one-on-one in the hole, but like taking the ball off him on the way down.
Forced a fumble. Was it Wilson?
Might have been, but that was that's a 7-point play.
Yeah.
Like he stops a touchdown by being the last guy there to stop him running in, but also on the way down just takes the ball away from him. Like that's a phenomenal individual defensive play. And that's what I mean. Like the Dallas defense was swinging early. They were overmatched. Like they were I think that the game plan wasn't good. The Dallas players tried their hardest initially, and then it just became apparent quite quickly, and the further the game progressed, that they were simply overmatched on both sides of the ball, and eventually they gave up swinging. Like they'd swung everything, they'd given everything they had. It was like a boxer, that gives his best shot, and the dude just takes it and keeps on walking. And you're like, uh-oh, now we're in trouble. That's what happened to Dallas.
Yeah, it also wasn't. Sometimes you oversimplify, and it's like, well, the Niners won in the trenches. Like they actually got some pressure. On Purdy and everything. It wasn't this dominant start-to-finish outing where the Cowboys couldn't get off a block or they couldn't do anything. Like, they got pressure, but that's where the Purdy game comes up. He goes 5 for 9 for $128 and 2 touchdowns under pressure, including that first one, 2 big-time throws. It's all a factor in this one.
Yeah, and they're,
oh, gosh.
Dallas's or San Francisco's pass rush was a really important part of this game. Dallas's pass protection didn't hold up the way it needed to. Terrence Steele against Nick Bosa was a mismatch. We talked before about what it was going to look like. Micah Parsons going up against, your choice of opponents. Are you going to go against Trent Williams and create one of the most fascinating one-on-one matchups of the season? Or are you going to spend your time against Colton McKivitz and have production? And he played like almost 2-to-1 snaps against Trent Williams. Why? What's the point? I would take the easy matchup. Put somebody else over the other side if he's going to. And Trent Williams was phenomenal. Like, he ended up basically shutting down Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons had a couple plays where he was a factor. And outside of that, Trent Williams basically contained him. It's like that kind of just feels like a waste of Micah Parsons.
It is one of the – if I had Bob Stern back here again, I thought we had a really fun interview with him on Thursday's show. Go check it out if you haven't yet, even though it's leading into this game. Still like a lot of really good insight there, just football generally. We had heard stuff about the Cowboys, and I don't know if this comes my question would be, does this come from Jerry Jones? That when Jason Garrett was there, there was this idea that like, oh, we're the Cowboys, we just line up and win. We'd heard those rumblings say coming out of the building, and I don't know if that's like a Jerry Jones from the top thing or if it was just Garrett, but it's kind of like what you're describing here, and where it's like, oh, we just do what we do, and Micah Parsons is going to rush against Trent Williams, like that's our matchup. You go win your matchup. When at some point, that can win in a lot of games. There's a lot of games where you're the better team, but when you're going up against the Niners, when you are the underdog, you might have to, find edges.
And also, there are some times where it's kind of a 50-50 proposition, right? The tackles are vaguely equal. But in a situation where you've got, like, on the one side, you've got the best left tackle in the game, and on the other side, you've got a kind of a liability, it just seems too obvious. Like, Nick Bosa on the other side is a slightly less extreme example of the same kind of idea. Bosa spends kind of 2-to-1 snaps on the left side, right? Generally, over the course of a season. He's going to play more on the left side than the right side. In this game, he basically spent every snap on the left side because he was beating Terrence Steele, and the other side is Tyron Smith, who's still one of the best left tackles in the game. So why would you bother going to the other side? The Cowboys should have been doing that with Micah Parsons, going, if we put him against Colton McKivitz, he wins every snap. If we could put him against Trent Williams, he almost never wins. So why try?
Yeah. Anything else on the Niners, man?
They look
great.
They look like the best team in the NFL right now. Kyle Shanahan's a wizard. He's got the Midas touch. Brock Purdy Brock Purdy doesn't need to play like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson for this team to be amazing. If he plays like this, which is like a slight step down, but is still the best version of him we've ever seen, I don't know who's stopping this team. I mean, we talked about whether this game means anything because of the dynamic between these two teams, in the playoffs over the last few years. All it did was give Dallas the kind of reality check of, like, this is the standard. If you expect to actually win playoff games and go to a Super Bowl, this is what you need to get past. And whether it's now or in January, you just got a very clear demonstration of how far off that pace you are.
I mean, from a Dallas standpoint, how can they just dominate bad teams and then lay an egg this badly against the best team? Are they that far behind? Niners have an interesting game against the Browns in Cleveland next week. Of course, they'll play the Eagles later in the season, December 3rd. I think we're all going to be pointing to that game. Just looking ahead really quick, I was looking at the Eagles' schedule. They have a run of games. So I don't think the Niners have as difficult a schedule as the Eagles as you battle for the number one seed here. The Eagles have a stretch of games. First off, they play the Dolphins in 2 weeks. And then there's a point where the Eagles play Dallas, the Chiefs, Bills, Niners, and then Dallas again. So 2 Cowboys games with the Chiefs, Bills, and Niners all mixed in. That's November and into December. It's going to be a fun little stretch for the Eagles and basically going to determine, I think, number one seed in the NFC. So just something to keep an eye on.